Pay close attention. The news you're about to see is fulfilling Bible prophecy.
Welcome to another edition of YPN News, bringing you the news that relates to Bible prophecy and foretold by Yeshua Hawkins. Well, Katan, we're going to talk about North Korea once again test firing some missiles.
Yep.
And we have Pope Francis commenting on Ukraine, again, always trying to see if he can influence that area. And also we're going to talk a little bit more about dragging the church into that Ukraine war situation and what some people are thinking regarding that. But first, we're going to talk about the COVID. Now, the United States has officially given word that the COVID pandemic is over, but is it really? In India, 5,880 new cases emerged in just 24 hours. Now, because of the sharp rise in cases, the government has announced they will be holding mock COVID preparedness drills across the country to access the readiness of the government as well as private hospitals.
Now, the drills are underway in multiple cities across numerous states as we speak, as the active case load has risen to over 35,000 nationwide. Officials want to be ready if things would get worse. Well, in Tamaran, the health minister there is overseeing the drills.
Well, the Central Health Minister held a meeting with state health ministers over the weekend proposing to curb the number of COVID cases by quickly identifying emergency hotspots and monitoring cases of influenza-like illness and severe acute respiratory infections, as well as increased testing and ramping up vaccinations. Now, the plan also includes ensuring readiness of hospital infrastructure, as well as ramping up genome sequencing as some positive measures to prepare for a large outbreak of cases.
Well, the Dali Lama has made an apology for making a vulgar request of a young boy who came to greet him and ask him for a hug. Well, after the hug, the boy appears to pull away and then is pulled back by the Dalai Lama to give him a kiss. After the kiss, he then tells the boy to, quote, suck his tongue. Now, the boy then complies with the instruction. Now, we want to warn you that this video you're going to see is disturbing.
Then I think finally here also. And suck my tongue. And suck my tongue.
Well, the incident set off a shockwave around the world, which triggered the apology to his 19 million followers on Twitter. Now, part of the tweet stated, quote, His Holiness wishes to apologize to the boy and his family, as well as his many friends across the world, for the hurt his words may have caused. Now, His Holiness often teases people he meets in an innocent and playful way, even in public and before cameras. He regrets the incident.
It's an interesting way of teasing someone that you just mean.
I don't know if I'd classify that as teasing.
Or innocent. Well, the 87-year-old Dalai Lama is the spiritual leader of Tibet, another country that China claims as belonging to them. Since 1959, he's lived in exile in India after an uprising against the Chinese government failed. China considers him a dangerous separatist since he does have a large following. Now, while the tweet apology, of course, tries to play the situation off as a joke, the Dalai Lama might actually lose some of his followers because of it.
Well, we're now going to turn to our field correspondent, Larry McGee, who has been covering several stories for us, including a message, an Easter message from Pope Francis. But first, he was looking into the North Korea missile tests. Larry, what is the latest with North Korea? What are they doing now with their missiles?
As the nations move deeper into all-out warfare, countries like North Korea are making sure to show their teeth as well. Recently, Pyongyang put its citizens on notice to be prepared for nuclear war. To this end, Kim Jong-un recently oversaw training of the country's troops for nuclear warfare and made the statement that simply having nuclear weapons is no longer sufficient to detour war. North Korea also announced a successful test launch of its short-range missile, which was initiated in response to an 11-day joint operation being carried out in the region by the U.S. and South Korea. Pyongyang has also conducted several other military exercises to show its disapproval for the alliance's attempts at intimidation. Russia has remained undeterred and unintimidated by the opposition it's receiving from the West, and has shown no less resolve in the face of Fatima, which has painted it as the aggressor and is publicly calling for prayers and a cessation of hostilities in the region. Please have a look at this video.
Aiuta l'amato popolo ucraino nel cammino verso la pace e rifondi la luce pasquale sul popolo russo. Conforta i feriti e quanto hanno perso i propri cari a causa della guerra e fa che i prigionieri possano tornare sani e salvi alle loro famiglie. Apre i cuori dell'intera comunità internazionale perché si adoperi a porre fine a questa guerra e a tutti i conflitti che insanguinano il mondo, a partire dalla Siria, che attende ancora la pace.
The broader war has also taken in nations of the South China Sea, such as the Philippines, who recently carried out joint military exercises with America as well. The latest show of force between the two is slated to be the largest exercise between the two nations thus far, and is intended to demonstrate a fortification of and growth in their alliance. The annual games are scheduled to include the mock sinking of a ship in the South China Sea from land, and are being conducted as Beijing itself carries out exercises related to precision strikes. While the government is excited about the exercises between the U.S. and the Philippines, some Philippine citizens are not. They see the country being manipulated and used as an instrument of America to achieve its objectives in the region, and they disapprove. For YPN News, I'm Larry McGee. Katan Jeff, back to you.
Well, the Pope is calling for peace, but it seems like war is all around. Well, China has begun a mock air blockade against Taiwan using live ammunition as tensions continue in the region of the South China Sea. The U.S. has sent a destroyer to the area, and of course, China viewed that move as an illegal incursion. China began these exercises just hours after Taiwanese president returned from a trip to the United States. China's drills is called Operation Joined Sword, and of course it's a 3-day naval and aerial blockade drill to practice sealing off the island and targeting precision Taiwanese locations. Now the Chinese, even showed a short video of a simulated military attack on the Taiwanese island with missile attacks from the air, sea, and land.
Well, these drills were expected as China was very upset with the Taiwan president's visit to the United States, which Beijing sees as an act of collusion. Now, China sees the island as part of its territory and insists it should be a part of its mainland, even by force if necessary. Wang Wenbin, the Chinese foreign minister, said in an address, quote, "The biggest threat to peace is the Taiwanese Straits, is Taiwanese separatism, and its support from foreign forces." Now, residents of China agree with the drills and say this show of force is necessary in telling the international community that Taiwan is a part of China and that these operations are meaningful.
Interesting. Well, the U.S. in response sent a guided missile destroyer, Milius, on a freedom of navigation operation in the South China Sea. China said that the U.S. intruded in its waters. Although the drills in China have ended, the ongoing tensions in the region between the two parties currently have no end in sight.
Well, one of the Serbian bishops commented on how the Orthodox Church is being drug into the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. He said in an interview with RT News, quote, "Whatever the problems between Ukraine and Russia, or more general, between the so-called collective West and Russia, where Ukraine serves as the main battleground, no one has the moral right to drag the church into this. It is unprecedented," he said, "in history for anyone to try and divide the church and decide its fate, to interfere in its organization and structure on the basis that most of them are on the same faith as the parties in the conflict."
He continued, "This is exactly what is happening in Ukraine. They have begun considering the Russian Orthodox Church as well as Russia as their enemies. More precisely, the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, which has autonomy and is separate from the Moscow Patriarchates, but maintains its contacts with Moscow as well as with other churches, including our own," he said, which is the Serbian Church. Well, in Ukraine, a non-existing and illegal church is being promoted as a state church and is conducting an inquisition, he said.
"Well, we clergy members cannot behave like politicians," he continued. "We cannot say that we're on the side of Ukraine, for example, and therefore, for us, there are no victims or no suffering of the other side, and vice versa. Now, to persecute the church is to shoot ourselves in the foot. You cannot infringe on sanctuaries, whatever goals you are pursuing. The church is not at war. It cannot and should not be at war. This is a direct persecution of the church."
Well, we see that, as the conflict heats up in that area with Russia and Ukraine, we see also that the religions are becoming more involved in it. And we have the Pope who's praying for peace with Ukraine. But I remember Yisrael Hawkins saying not that long ago, many times in fact, that this is a war of religions. And so we see that that's coming more to the forefront as these things are being put more on the news and as the churches are getting a little bit more agitated when they see force being brought against them.
Right, and even though they might try to stay in the background, like you said, you see that the churches are behind these wars taking place.
That's right. Well, if you'd like to learn more about the current prophecy and what's, of course, yet to come very soon, contact the House of Yahweh. And when you do, don't forget to request your free copy of the Prophetic Word magazine and the monthly newsletter. Here's how.
To contact the House of Yahweh, you can write them at The House of Yahweh, P.O. Box 2498, Abilene, Texas 79604. You can call them at 1-800-613-9494. Visit them on any of their websites by going to yahweh.com, YisraelHawkins.com, or Yahweh'sBranch.com. You can also visit our website by going to YPNnews.com. If you would like to email the House of Yahweh, you could do so by emailing info@yahweh.com. For any international calls, you can call the number that's on your screen now. And once again, don't forget to check out the Yisrael Says program by going to YisraelSays.com and the Ask Yisrael program by going to AskYisrael.com.
Well, don't go anywhere. Get your scriptures, a pencil, pen, and paper, something to write with, because up next is a classic and very informative message from Yisrael Hawkins. From all of us here at YPN News, I'm Katan Alexander.
And I'm Jeffrey Heimerman.
Thank you for watching.